Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Commander Deck Tech. This is a super fun one. A few episodes ago, we did Toski Mono Green Squirrel action. Now we have modified that one and made the General the Commander. Chatterfang Squirrel General out of Modern Horizons 2. Legendary creature Squirrel Warrior. It's a 3/3 with Forest Walk. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. So let's read that one more time because it's important. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, so whatever it is, those tokens, so those get created, plus that many 1/1 green squirrel tokens are created instead. So you get double action. It's a weird double seasoning effect. It's very cool. And then for the black pip, sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets +1/-1 until end of turn. We aren't so much interested in that last part, but that might be a end the game scenario for you. But this thing is super fun to play, and let's get into the squirrel action. As in all of our deck techs, we got some packages. Squirrel action is definitely going to be part of it. So let's run through this bad boy and get to some squirrels. We have a good amount of removal. We got some combos. We have the land package, of course. A few counters. Serious shenanigans going on. Squirrel power. A handful of tutors. One piece of protection. Some draw. Some alt-win action, and of course we got some ramp because we are, after all, in green. Alright, so it looks like Architect is going to want us to start with removal, so let's do removal, folks. Alright, Abrupt Decay and Golgari, a huge staple for removal in Golgari colors. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. Assassin's Trophy, same kind of jankiness. It gives the opponent a land for their troubles, but you can target even lands with this, so it's very nice. Bane of Progress, totally fetchable with some of our tutoring. When Bane of Progress enters the battlefield, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Put a 1/1 counter on Bane of Progress for each permanent destroyed this way. Now, when you destroy all those artifacts and enchantments, don't forget to put your 1/1 counters on there. I have done that before. And the people I was playing with forgot to even tell me. Those little weasels. Oh no, squirrels. Squirrels. We're dealing with squirrels. Beast Within. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 greased green beast creature token. Grease. I haven't watched that movie in decades. Damnation. Oh yes, in terms of removal. Can't go wrong with Damnation. Reset button for sure. Deadly Rollick, I really like this card, as you probably know if you've seen some of our past episodes that are dealing with black. If you got your commander out, this doesn't cost you a thing. Exile target creature. We got Force of Vigor, same kind of concept. If it's not your turn, you can exile a green card and you don't pay for it. Destroy up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. Then we got the oldie but goodie Putrefy. Destroy target artifact and creature. It can't be regenerated. Reclamation Sage. It's a 3-drop elf that destroys target artifact or enchantment. Alright, we are into some shenanigans, and we got a lot in this deck. Arachnogenesis. You put X/1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach on the battlefield where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. That is some jank right there with some serious stank. Alright, Auspicious Starrix. This combos up nicely with Scoot Swarm, which is also in this build. Auspicious Starrix, whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile X permanent cards. Where X is the number of times this creature has mutated, put those permanent cards onto the battlefield. Now, most likely, you're going to be fetching 1 card because we're not doing a bunch of mutation shenanigans. Almost lost the ability to speak there. Beastmaster Ascension. Enchantment. Whenever creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster Ascension. As long as it has 7 or more quest counters, all your creatures get 5/5. What? That is shenanigans. For surezies. Champion of Lambholt. 3-drop. It gets a +1 counter for every creature that enters the battlefield. Notice it's not a cast thing, it enters the battlefield. So all of our token generation makes Lambholt gigantic, including these tokens that get created. Grave Titan for 6/6/6 Death Touch whenever Grave Titan enters the battlefield or attacks. Put 2 black zombie creature tokens on the battlefield. Yeah, buddy. Omnath, Locus of Mana for 3. You don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. Omnath, Locus of Mana gets 1/1 for each unspent green mana you have. Now, keep in mind, those are not +1/+1 counters. That just means it gets that much bigger. Just something to clarify for the doubling season effect. And like I said, we got Scoot Swarm. You put Auspicious Starrix on here, and suddenly whenever this thing duplicates itself, it's duplicating a 6/6 creature instead of a 1/1. It's pretty janky and pretty awesome. Landfall, whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm. So this gets out of hand real quick. Yes, it does. Vigor for 5. If damage will be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. I really like Vigor. And you can fetch that thing with the tutor, put it on the battlefield, and everything just shifts in your favor, y'all. Wormcoil Engine, Death Touch, Lifelink, and when it dies, you create a 3/3 artifact creature that has Death Touch and a 3/3 artifact that has Lifelink. Alright, we got a protection piece in here, which is Heroic Intervention. This is in most of the green builds I have. Permanents you control gain X-Proof and Indestructible at the end of turn. Just very awesome. Alright, we got an alt win here. Craterhoof Behemoth. You can go tutor this bad boy up. It's got haste. Whenever Craterhoof enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get XX till end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. That is ridiculous, which is why it's a $40 card. Alright, we got Strixhaven Stadium for an alt win. You can tap it for mana, which is nice, and when you do, you put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you have deals damage, you put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. When you have 10 or more, that opponent that got whacked by one of your creatures loses the game if you remove the point counters. Alright, another alt win. Triumph of the Hordes. Give all of your creatures +1/+1 and gain trample and infect until end of turn. Infect, of course, if your opponent gets 10 infect counters, they lose the game, and that's 10 per opponent. Very nice. Very ridiculous. Alright, ramp. We'll blast through this. We got Arcane Signet, your colors of your commander. Azusa, we can play 2 additional lands on each of our turns. Cultivate, of course. Mana Dork in the house, another Mana Dork in the house, and another Mana Dork in the house. Oracle of Moldiah, you can play with the top card of your library up, and you can play an additional land on each of your turns. You may play lands from the top of your library. So make sure when you're sifting through your library and you're looking at the top of your card, look at the top of your library first before you play out of your hand. That will be super good for you. Seedborn Muse, totally swappable card out of this build, by the way. It's 5-drop, 2/4, untap all permanents you control during each player's untap step. This does work really well with Omnath, however. So this will make Omnath really big. Alright, Sky Shroud Claim. So we can go grab 2 force cards and put them on the battlefield untapped, by the way. Then we got the staple Soul Ring, tap for 2. 3 visits to go search your library for a force card and also put it in untapped. Wood Elves, go grab a forest and put it in untapped. Arbor Elf, oh, we're in the combo. Arbor Elf, untapped target forest. And more importantly is Earthcraft comboed with Squirrel Nest. So the way this works, folks, if you haven't seen the other episodes about this combo, you got Earthcraft out on the battlefield. Tap an untapped creature you control, untap basic land. So Squirrel Nest is one of your lands. You tap it to create a 1/1 squirrel, and then you use Earthcraft to tap that squirrel you just created, which untaps Squirrel Nest land. Repeat. Infinite squirrels in the house. And you can do this on your opponent's end steps. So all of those infinite squirrels have no Summoning Sickness. Yeah, buddy. Alright, counter action. We got Branching Evolution. If one or more 1/1 counters would be put on your creature, you double that up. Speaking of doubling, we got Doubling Season. And this is for your stuff. It doesn't affect your opponents, like for infect counters and stuff. If an effect would put one or more tokens in play under your control, you do it double. And same with +1/+1 counters. You do it double. Yeah, buddy. Speaking of double, Hydra's Growth. When Hydra's Growth enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on an enchanted creature and you double it each upkeep. This thing gets super janky, super big. Especially if you put it like on Vorinclex, which would be super, super janky-licious. Oh, man. So this is the Trample Haster 6/6 for 6. If you would put a 1/1 counter on it, you double that. And if your opponent would put a 1/1 counter, you half that. So if they would end up with a +1/+1 counter, which would be good for them, it puts on none. That's pretty fabulous. All right. Next up is some tutor action. Demonic Tutor. They decided to use that version. I kind of like that artwork. What do you guys think? I'm just used to seeing this version. Boom. Search your library for one card and take it into your hand. Yeah, that's right. Take it into your hand. Pretty nice. About the best tutor you can think of. Finale of Devastation. Speaking of some tutor action, go grab that Craterhoof Behemoth with 10 or more mana spent. So 2 green and then X. And if X is more than 10, creatures you control get +X/+X. Plus, if you do this with Craterhoof, it gets the +X/+X crazy. I mean, it's out of control if you go tutor up something like that. You don't have to go grab Craterhoof, but that's one of the win conditions, is to grab Craterhoof out of your library with Finale of Devastation. Green Sun Zenith, another way you can tease out either a utility creature like Bane or, Craterhoof, that kind of stuff. Natural Order does the same kind of stuff. You sack a green creature and go search your library for a green creature. That is just janky as all get up. I love it. Worldly Tutor puts a creature on top of your library for 1 pip in green. Beast Whisperer, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Very, very powerful. And speaking of powerful, you wouldn't think this was as powerful as it is, but it really, really is. 4/3, at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Do the little life hack where you put a dice on your deck, and that way when you're about to draw, you go, oh yeah, scry 1. So you scry whenever you cast a creature spell. You may pay green if you do draw a card. Very nice, very nice. Oakham Adversary, 4-drop, 2/3. If any of your opponents have a green permanent, this costs 2 less. It's got Death Touch and draws a card if you deal damage to a creature, to a player. Ravenous Squirrel. We are in draw technically still, but this is some of the squirrel power action. Ravenous Squirrel, it's a 1-drop in either color. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact or creature, put a 1/1 counter on Ravenous Squirrel. And for 3, sack an artifact or creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So it's got draw mechanics and it can get bigger. I mean, this thing is very, very cool. Return of the Wild Speaker. We can either buff our board that's hopefully gone wide by +3/+3, or we can draw cards based off of the greatest power of creature we have. Either way, this is a great card. Sylvan Library. Almost redundant in this build, but not quite. So if you have it, run it. If you don't, swap it out. No big deal. Draw 2 cards. Then if you want to put those 2 cards in your hand, you pay 8 total life for them. 4 life per card. Otherwise, you put them back on top of your library in any order you want, and you do your card for draw. It's a great, great card, period. I mean, yeah, don't need to say much more. All right, we're going to blast through the land package. We got Bayou, the original dual land. If you don't have it, swap it out for another dual. No biggie. We got Castle Garenbrig. This is out of Throne of Eldraine. You can pay 4 to get 6 to play a creature spell or activate an ability, or you just tap it for green. The only downside is that it comes in tapped if you don't have a force, which you most likely will have a force. So not much downside to that one. Darkbore Pathway, that's the black on one side, green mana source on the other from Kaldheim. You choose which one you're going to put down. Very nice mana fixing. We're running 16 force. Necro Blossom Snarl out of Strixhaven. I just really like this one. You show a swamp or a forest and it comes in untapped. Nykthos Shrined to Nyx. Since we're pretty heavy in green here, this is going to be utilized really well. Most of our black in this deck is just a few creatures and mostly removal spells for the most part. So most likely you're going to be tapping this for green mana source for surezies. Or in Reef the Fastwood, you can put a 1/1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield, not cast, but entered. So that's actually very, very cool. I don't like that it comes in tapped, but I do like the other stuff. Overgrown Tomb, we got our Shock Land, which is dualies, 2 life to bring it in untapped. We got 7 swamps because we are heavy into green. Swamp Yard, where we can regenerate squirrels, spiders too, and rats, but squirrels is really what matters. All right, we got Undergrowth Stadium. This is the one that comes in untapped for our colors if we have 2 or more opponents. Got our Fetch Land and Golgari colors to go grab a forest or swamp and pay 1 life. All right, we got some squirrel power action here. Now, this is very similar to the other build we did for Toski. Let's just blast through this. Acorn Harvest, put 2 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens into play with Flashback. Pay 3 life. You can do it again for 2 green. Love it. Love it. Create some more squirrels. All right, Bellowing Tanglewurm for 5/4/4 with Intimidate. Creatures can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a color with it. Other green creatures you control have Intimidate. Very cool squirrel. All right, here is one of the new ones out of Modern Horizons. I cracked one of these with my winnings when I played pre-release. I was super happy. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a token if you do put an acorn counter on Chitterspitter. Squirrels you control get +1 for each acorn counter on Chitterspitter. And then 1 green tap, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. This thing does it all for squirrels, man. I mean, it's just all, it's a Door of Destinies built into a Chitterspitter. I mean, seriously, that's awesome. Coat of Arms. All of our squirrels just feed off of each other, getting bigger and bigger with Coat of Arms. Each creature gets +1 for each other creature on the battlefield of that shared type. Deep Forest Hermit for 5, vanishing 3. When Deep Forest Hermit enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Squirrels you control get +1/+1 with vanishing 3. That means by the time you hit 3 times, it goes away. So your +1 squirrel action is gone, but you still have the squirrels, so not too shabby. Deranged Hermit. This is a spendy one, but it is super awesome. When Deranged Hermit comes into play, put 4 squirrel tokens into play, and all your squirrels get +1/+1. It's got Echo, so you have to pay the 5 again if you want to keep it into play. But a lot of times, you're not even going to care about that Echo cost. You're either going to let it sack because you don't care about the +1/+1. But usually, you'll want to keep this in. Druid's Call for 2. Whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, its controller puts that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens into play. So if you swing with Toski, who is indestructible, and you have this thing on it, and it absorbs 10 damage, you create 10 squirrels. That's pretty funny. Pretty funny indeed. Crozen Beast. It's a 4-drop. Threshold. Crozen Beast gets +7/+7. Boom. Threshold is when there's 7 cards or more in your graveyard. All right, Liege of the Hollows for 4/3/4. If Liege of the Hollows is put into any graveyard for play, each player may put any amount of mana, pay any amount of mana to put that number of squirrel tokens into play under their control. Treat those tokens as 1/1 green creatures. Now, most likely, other people creating squirrel creature tokens isn't going to be as helpful as us creating squirrel tokens. But be careful how you play this thing. It could go awry if you're not careful. Nut Collector for 6. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a 1/1 green squirrel creature token into play. With Threshold, all squirrels get +2/+2. Yeah, buddy. Another squirrel card I ended up in pre-release, although I didn't use it. It is 3-drop. Squirrel Mob gets +1 for each other squirrel on the battlefield. Boom, shalakalak. Squirrel Sovereign, also out of the new Modern Horizons 2 as of this recording. Other squirrels you control get +1/+1. And then Squirrel Wrangler. This is an old card, but super funny. All right, it's for 4. It sack a land for 2, put 2 green squirrel creature tokens into play, or sacrifice a land. All squirrels get +1 until end of turn. Now, speaking of Toski, this thing is so ridiculous. It's 4-drop 1/1, can't be countered, and indestructible. Must attack each turn if able. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. I mean, this thing is Squirrel-alicious. Yes, I did say Squirrel-alicious. I really did. And, hey, we're back to Chatterfang Squirrel General. This is just so fun. I'm so excited about Squirrel Tribal in EDH Commander. I actually have 2 Squirrel decks because Chatterfang is great as a commander and so is Toski as a commander. If, like I said, you're thinking of doing a mono green, you can do the Toski build we did. Check in the description below. And Chatterfang is super fun as well. I just love squirrels. Squirrels are awesome. All right, thanks for tuning in. Check out our other episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. All right, thanks. Cheers.